Welcome to the Star Trek CCG Set Chat and Pack Crack video series. Today we're going to be talking about Reflections, which was released in October of 2000, consisted of 105 foils for the set, 18 cards per pack. Although you got a lot more cards than just the foil. Can folks here explain what's going on with Reflections?
As we were preparing to film today's episode, I was trying to put my thoughts into context about Reflections, and I was torn between describing it as either a cynical cash grab or as one of the most fun sets of packs to open. And I'm forced to conclude that it's probably both, simply because one is not going to get anything fascinating and new necessarily, but one can also find cards drawn from all sorts of different sets, which can be either hard to get in sealed condition themselves in many other ways. So Dan, why don't you tell us about the distributions and what we're going to find in here?
Absolutely. Well, also as a comment on your cash grab, this is the first pack that Decipher released at $5 each instead of $3. Partially, the justification was the number of additional cards, but it may lean a little bit more to the cash grab aspect in your research. This is a 105 card set. It has 50 very rare foils, 46 super rare foils, 4 ultra rare foils, 4 box topper foils, and 1 case topper foil. So this is the first time that we've introduced foils or cards of any kind that are included outside of a pack wrapper, but in your pack shipping packaging. So there's 1 per case, so 1 per 6 boxes of the 7 of 9 foil, and then the 4 box topper foils. You got 1 inside of each randomly bought box. So they started realizing that customers were buying the boxes themselves whole, not just game stores, and went to market that. So people were buying 4, 5, 6 boxes each so that they could just finish their set. Those are a lot of fun, but the ultra rare foils are extremely they're extremely sought after now, and they're in relatively short production numbers. I've seen a lot of numbers, none of which I trust, at quantities at 1,000 or less of total numbers of these. From a perspective of when you're opening the pack, this is a lot of fun. There are 18 cards in each pack. One of them is the foil. The other 17 come from any and all Decipher products that have been produced before we established from Dominion or before. So you'll get 3 to 4 cards from Premier, from one of the Premier sets, and or introductory 2-player game. You'll get a couple of cards from AU and Q. You'll get a couple of cards from First Contact, a couple of cards from Deep Space Nine and Dominion. I personally, this is the set that I've opened the most of. I know that I've opened more than 2 cases of this. I just had so much fun and would just keep buying it because it was so much fun to open. I personally pulled a Defiant, the White Border Defiant, out of a DS9 portion of one of these. It is possible to get a 2 ultra rare pack where you get the Future Enterprise and one of the ultra rare foils in the same pack. Anecdotally, that has happened where someone pulled the double Future Enterprise, but I haven't seen video of that. But yeah, it's a ton of fun to open and something that I as a collector, have really enjoyed chasing those foils.
And just to clarify, make this very specific, the cards that we're going to be getting that aren't the foil are not reprinted cards. These are from prior production runs of the sets, correct?
So this is another also possibly cynical cash grab element in the sort of perceived wisdom of the community is that Decipher had warehouses of cards which are either never packaged up or never sold. And by having the incentive of purchasing the packs by using foils, one could also place all of these unsold, unpacked cards to clear out and sell to justify the price cost along with the foil card as well, which is why they can come from almost any set. So it can be Black Border Premier, it can be the 2 White Border Premiers, it can be any number of things before this point, and the non-pack expansion components as well. But it probably was a warehouse clearing exercise, but I can't prove that.
I know I've pulled cards from First Anthology. I know the promo cards. I know I've pulled Blackwater Premier out of Reflections cards as well. But that was part of the fun too, is that it wasn't 100% standardized. You know, what pack you got out of what box, out of what case, out of what section of their print run varied the cards you got quite a bit. And you could pull a pack that had 5 or 6 rares just because of your luck of your draw. And you could pull a pack that had just the foil and everything else was common.
And as we've discussed, we only start to see the introduction of the rarity and number indicators on the Trouble with Tribbles expansion and onward. So one of the best things about pulling cards from these sets is it's almost like a little self-memory test. You have to sort of remember which ones are common, which ones are uncommons, and which ones are rare. And it's up to you to try and spot those. And you have to double check occasionally to make sure that you're not passing over something exciting that you just didn't know was a rare from a previous set.
All right, no, I know, Johannes, this is an interesting set must be from a player perspective, since there's really no new cards. But you know, from what Reflections is offering here, what did it do to gameplay?
Well, as I said, there are no new cards, so the game environment doesn't change a lot. So where Reflections is really interesting is not in constructed play, where you build your deck before the tournament, but rather in sealed or in draft tournaments, where you get a factory sealed product, open it, and then you have to build a deck on the fly from those cards. So I'm not going to mention all the reprints that are included. Of course, that is a wide open field and it can be hilarious what you get, but rather from the new foils or the foil reprints of existing cards, what's interesting there. Sealed tournaments usually either make sure that you have some card in the pool that allows you to mix various affiliations together, like the triple treaty that you get in the official tournament sealed deck, or they will use some house rule that allows you to simply mix all the affiliations. And then, of course, you can even use board cards or something like that. So I'm looking at it from that perspective. And then it's probably very easy to say that there are certain card types you want. You want dilemmas, because all the dilemmas in Reflections are good. Artifacts, because artifacts are usually very strong, and in Reflections they included some of the top bunch of that card type. So if I had to pick one card, I'd probably want the Horgan for the double turn. That's probably one card I would go for. Apart from that, almost all the personal are great. As long as you can mix them together with the rest, you can have excellent personal. You can have Odo for Bajorans. You can have Ducat for Cardassians. You can have, for example, Kira Founder with 6 skills for Dominion. You can have Dr. Telegramor for Romulans, Governor Worf for Klingons, Roger Dana for anyone, Jean-Luc Picard Data for Federation guys. So the personal are almost all good. What you probably don't want in that environment are the missions. They are beautiful, but they are hard. You don't want the facilities, simply because the chances that you get more than 1 or 2 personal that I can actually play for free are rather slim. So they are not as useful as they are in constructed. And likewise, the events and interrupts that you find tend to be very situational, and you might not have any synergy in the rest of cards you get. As far as ships are concerned, some very good ships. However, they can be a bit deceptive, because some of the best ships, like the Future Enterprise or the Enterprise C, require an alternate universe in their staffing icons, and you might not be guaranteed to get that one, because even though your affiliations might be able to mix, you still have to have the staffing requirements, and this is where you might have a bottleneck. So really, if I could pick my rare from that set, I'd go for the Horgan.
You know, I love jamming that Horgan in Premiere, so so getting it here, if I were to play, makes a lot of sense. Cool. So cool. Those are some cards you'd want to open from a collector's perspective. Again, kind of interesting question, right? Because we have tons of cards that we have already seen. But what do we want to open here?
Well, real quick, one other quick note is that at this point, Decipher has only made foils of previously existing rares. They have not made any uncommon or common card rare. These, or there are some premiums in here as well, but there's no commonly available card that's been made into a foil. And that holds through for all of Decipher. They made rare foils available in packs, and common and uncommon cards were only available as tournament giveaways.
There's a few other things I'd certainly note. Once again, behind Johannes, we see the Admiral Riker card. So this is one we've been introduced to in its white border promo version in the Dominion set. Here we have it again in a black border but foil set, and we'll encounter it once again in the All Good Things set at the very end. So it's a card that's cropping up from these sort of more interesting timeframes. In a previous video, we talked about the various values of cards, how we went from, say, Picard and the Enterprise and the Premier set being the most valuable to the Future Enterprise. That held the title until the DS9 Turok North Station. Though that is slightly outdone perhaps by the ultra rare foils from the Blaze of Glory expansion. But the 4 ultra rare foils from this set now supplant the ultra rare foils from the Blaze of Glory set as the highest value cards at this point to purchase from a market perspective. As Dan mentioned, they are very hard to come by. You don't often see them listed, and their cost is still going up quite substantially. It also does, however, provide you with a few more of those moments when opening packs that stick with you. I opened 2 boxes of Reflections, and near the end of one of them, I didn't even know which ones were the ultra rares at the time. I hadn't done my research, but when I pulled a foil Future Enterprise, I was ecstatic because I thought, if this is an ultra rare in its base form, I bet you it's of good value in this set. And sure enough, that was my only ultra rare pull from the several boxes that I was able to get a hold of before the market price for Reflections boxes has increased dramatically over the last couple of years. So fingers crossed, but it's still a tremendously fun pack to open, partly just because you don't know what you're going to get.
I've never opened a Reflections pack, and my excitement is measured. So I do feel like this is kind of like a casino pack. We're kind of rolling the dice here, and who knows where we're going to end up. Tom, you opened up in a lot of packs. You got the one ultra rare, so we'll. I'd love to see another Whitewater Defiant. So
you've got to go at this with, there's the mistaken attitude that anything other than ultra rare foil is a horrendous failure, and then also. It's more fun to open more than one pack because sometimes you'll get 3 or 4 rares in there, but that is not very, very likely. Sometimes you're only going to get commons and uncommons from those earlier sets. So it really is just for fun, right? No expectations, and you won't be disappointed.
Yep.
Fair enough.
3 of the 4 ultra rares are Federation, so we're probably still looking for a blue card.
Always love looking for a blue card, absolutely. And yeah, it's so interesting that this entire video series, our sample is 1. For each pack, just one. Don't have the experience of opening up a bunch and exploring the set in that way. So certainly different, but also a little similar here with just 1 pack. And it says right on the back from Premier, AU, Q, First Contact, Deep Space Nine, Dominion. Here we go. Reflections. All right. Testing the expert's knowledge of where these cards have come from. Here we go. Black border card to start. It is a yellow alert. Okay, pack is open. I see a white border.
It's coming from AU, I believe.
Yep.
We start with
should say 95 on the side.
It does.
Good.
I see a few white borders sticking out. Yeah, it's interesting looking at this layout of this pack.
I've never opened a pack that didn't have some white border in there because that's what they had the most of in the warehouse. That's
exactly.
Another alternate universe. Yeah, here we go. AU.
Decent skill base right out of the box.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed one. This was the card we opened up 2 of for alternate. We opened 3 of this card in this video series. Cannot get rid of the interphasic plasma creatures. Wow.
Good dilemma. If we find a card that allows us to seed it.
Bing. All right, Q.
Flexing.
Yeah, we transitioned to Q.
We opened up another Reginald Barkley, so we got some Dwight Schultz going on in our web series here. Another Q.
I think it's usually 3 of each from those kind of sets typically when you get.
There's Nebula from Q as well. Another black border. More Q.
Military privilege.
I know we got white border. I assume this is our 95. Yep.
I would assume so.
1995 Tauren. Well, mission specialist.
Yep.
Another white border. Paltef.
Another one.
Mission specialist.
So we've got science, we've got engineer. And a decent
There's
dilemma.
Dominion.
Stellar cartography is not actually quite easily found, especially in limited formats, and also double navigation can be hard to come by. So this can be a very good dilemma.
Well, we've got Torin here, who's going to help us with that stellar cartography. Oh no, astrophysics.
But your next one's good. You showed us.
Next
You
one's fantastic.
mentioned him, Tom, before. You mentioned.
Yeah, this is one of those wonderful, Blaze. This is Dominion. So this is in the same time the Romulans were getting Lovok and cards like that. We also had a few nods to the Klingons. Obviously, a character that you really, that a lot of people love. He's in a lot of shows. The actor has a lot of personas. So it's always a really fun one to pull, and it's an example of why Reflections is so fun, because that's just a great card. Like, I'd be happy with that rare when we opened our Dominion pack. It's a really nice one to have.
So it is a rare.
He is a rare.
Yes.
And we can immediately forget about the fact that I said double navigation is hard to come by.
Because it's right.
It wasn't Torin, it was Martok that got us through that dilemma. There we go. I knew it. Just had it backwards. All right, there's Martok. This is another Klingon. Oh, here's our rare. It's a foil. Excuse me. This is what we got. We got Kern. Another Klingon.
Another good crew, another good Klingon, and also
another navigation.
Yeah.
And better and better for our game against Johannes here.
Kern is very rare, I believe, if I've gotten if my memory's correct.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
But also he's a rare example of a reasonable skill set for a premier Klingon card. So.
Deep Space
Not
Nine.
just honor and leadership. Julie Kaplan Brown.
DS9,
Yep. Weapons locker's not bad.
How about that White Border Defiant? What do you think?
Yeah.
That would be nice, but
Darian Wallace and our old friends. More 1994, but I've gotten a lot of this.
Is this 94? Did you say?
No, this is 95. But I'm saying
95.
the 94 version I've seen. I've seen a lot of those. So this is the 95 version. 95 again. All right.
Uh-huh. $2D critters.
I think that was our last. Oh, we got one more. It is a Romulan. Oh, look at that. Another
Hey,
rare.
that one's rare.
Another rare.
Right.
So Devorus is a pretty good ship, and it's nice. There's an example. So you had two rares outside of your foil in that pack, and the Martok one is really good, and Devorus is a perfectly reasonable Romulan ship from Premiere. So that's fun, right? Yeah, and that's just what you don't know what you're going to get. You didn't get any first contact cards, so sometimes you don't know what it's going to be from each set. But that's a perfectly good pack, I'd say.
Agreed.
So decent Dominion rare, pretty good Dominion rare. The decent 95, and then the foil was kind of par for the course. Although Johannes, you mentioned really any personnel, it's probably good from a sealed perspective.
The foil personnel in that set are really good, and I think it also shows really well how the initial personnel from the very first set, where we had, I think we had 4 mission specialists now with only a single skill here, where we had a lot of those in the early sets, and then the skill density grew a lot as we went forwards through the different expansions here.
All right, 3 rares, cool.
Awesome. And yeah, that pretty beautifully demonstrates why I find Reflections so much fun to open. You never know what you're going to get, and sometimes it's super exciting, and sometimes it's just another Jera.
Any other thoughts to add about Reflections?
Not really. It's gone crazy, and I think that's because while they definitely printed a lot of it, it's still consistently fun to open and a fun way to open some of the early sets.
It's a more elegant weapon from a more civilized age. Unfortunately, as I said, I don't think I was able to get a couple of packs, and that was clearing out the sort of last standard places you could acquire them from at the time. So I was glad I just got in on that, because it was so much fun to open, but it was never an option for me to get a case or do anything like that. So it's a fun one, but it's one of the ones that's most fun at a box level, at least. So you get the variety of things that you might find in a pack. You get a wide range of the foils. 1 or 2 packs can often. I remember buying 1 pack before I bought the boxes, just because I wanted to open, having to be able to say I'd open 1 of each pack, and it wasn't that thrilling. It's like, oh, I got something. I think I even sold the foil thinking I'd never try and complete my foil collection before I then went on to do future things. But opening it at the box or multi-box level was a real pleasure.
Let's go back to the single, opening up 1 pack. How did this compare, this 1 pack, to what you typically might do? Was this a better than average kind of spin of the casino wheel? Is it like just average? Is it a little bit less than what you'd hope for in just a random spin of reflections?
Two additional rares is good. And especially given that one of those rares, Martok, is a decent value, fun card. So to me, the most exciting card in that pack was the Martok rather than the Kern foil, right? So that's what makes it good. A very rare is always fine, but especially if you're trying to complete the set, every very rare you open is one not ultra rare that you didn't open. So that's why that can be a little draining, and that's why it's not so bad at the box level, because at least you're populating things. I was also quite lucky in that even though I purchased my 2 boxes from 2 different vendors, there was very little overlap between the foils I was getting. And so even though because I only had a couple of boxes, it would have been very painful to have to buy all of the other foils that aren't that exciting to do. Today, one is still hard pressed to find the ultra rares at a reasonable price. It's not going to get any better, but it still is a nice set to have. So yeah, one pack, it's fine. You did well with this one for sure, but I think it's a shame that the box experience won't be available again for very many folks.
Yeah, I would agree. That was an above average box. I would say about 1.5 rares plus your foil is average. So you both beat the average on that, and you beat the average on the value of the rares.
Well, that's just nice to put it in perspective, because I'm coming into this wondering, I have no idea what the average value of a pack will be. Certainly, Tom, you mentioned the kind of the range, and it can be a little bit of both, but I've seen a lot of these open on YouTube videos, et cetera, where you get, close to nothing. And it's, just nice to have kind of more of a, I don't know, hearing from you, unbiased perspective on what might constitute a good pack. So it's nice to hear this is a little bit above average, and this is kind of what you might expect. So 2-ish rares per pack.
And for me, I had the added bonus of trying to flesh out my commons and uncommons from DS9, Dominion, and First Contact. So as a result, every pack would usually give me just a little something I didn't have, and that made it even more fun to do. Whereas if I'd have had those sets complete, that would have just been more things to stick in a box for future use.
Well, definitely this theme that there's so many, it sounds like, benefits opening the box level. You just mentioned another one. You can go through and complete sets, if you have more, and kind of fill in those extra pieces.
And here's some other moments. As well as opening those foils, I got my Julian Bashir and Jadzia Dax from rares in Reflections packs. So those stand out to me almost as much as opening a rare foil or something like that, because they're main bridge crew personnel, which I obtained through a non-brutally painful acquisition method.
Well, thanks, folks, for helping me through this Reflections pack. This was Reflections, our 1 foil and our kind of casino spin of 17 other cards, and we'll see you in the next set.